Back in the 1980s and even before, if you asked most of the actors and actresses in the adult business how they got into the movies, they'll tell you that they answered an ad for nude models in the newspaper. Well, that's great for those people who happen to live in New York or California, but I didn't live in either of those places. I lived in flyover country in the middle of Indiana. So that's not how I got started. I saw a lot of these actresses and models going through the circuit in different cities and clubs near Indianapolis. And I saw the kind of shows they did, and I knew, because I had the same agent they did, I knew the kind of money they were making. And that was very frustrating to me because I was working like crazy to do good shows. I was a trained dancer. I did my first solo as a 4-year-old in tap. I had done theater in Indianapolis, professional theater, and musical comedies to be specific. So I knew how to act, I knew how to dance, and I knew how to sing, what they used to call a triple threat. And this is only because I studied. I went to school. I did like 3 classes a week in ballet, jazz, tap, modern, all these different dance forms so I could learn how to dance. But the amount of money you make as a dancer in theater compared to dancing in a gentleman's club, well, there is no comparison. So that's why I got into that. And it was frustrating to me to see these ladies come in and do these sloppy shows. They couldn't even keep a beat, but they were making thousands and thousands of dollars a week because they were drawing people in based on their popularity and what they had done. So that's kind of why I wanted to get involved in that business. Once I made a name for myself in that business, I could go out on the road and do my shows that were good shows. I knew how to dance. I did belly dancing. I did hula. I did a show where I cracked whips. It was kind of a dominatrix thing. I did a fire show where I lit myself on fire and had torches and stuff. Almost set theater on fire in Chicago. That's another story. My little excursion into pretending to be Mrs. O'Leary's cow. Oh my. Anyway, I digress. I also had a show where my husband would carry me on stage and I was like a robot. And then as the music would start, I would start to dance and I would do the robot and then I would come to life and be more loose. I wish I had video to show you this, but those things didn't exist back then. Nowadays, everybody has their own video camera on their phone. We didn't have that back in the 80s. So unfortunately, I don't have any video, but I do have some of these little pictures to show you. And it was a fun time. But because I was known for the magazines and the movies and such, and could draw people in because of that, and then once they were in, I could do a show that really was entertaining. And my costumes, some of these other actresses, when I first got into the business, some of them were dancing barefoot in dirty negligees. So my costumes were more Las Vegas style. They were sparkly. And my grandma was a seamstress. And my first job was as a seamstress when I was a teenager. So I knew how to sew. She had a whole workroom downstairs in the basement. So she was very supportive of my career. And she helped me by making my costumes. So I had some pretty nice costumes, I must say, compared to some of the other ladies out there. Of course, they often stayed on for just a few minutes and found themselves in a basket to be carried backstage at the end of the show. But nonetheless, I started out with good costumes, and that was nice. My husband always went with me on the road. And as time progressed and we had children, our children went with us as well. And we had a babysitter that went with us to take care of the kids while my husband and I went to the club to do my shows. Now, in between the shows, there'd be hours on end. Oftentimes I would do a matinee, and then my next show wouldn't be until 7 or 8 o'clock at night. So I would come back to the hotel in between the shows, pick up the kids, maybe go to a museum, an amusement park if one was nearby, to the zoo, to a park where they could play on swing sets and stuff like that. Something to get them out of the hotel. And something to get me out of the club and out of the hotel and to see the city so that I could see the country that we were crossing. Because this was a golden opportunity to travel. We traveled the world. I went to Australia, New Zealand, Guam, Hawaii, multiple times to Guam and Hawaii, and to Europe, to Italy, and worked in all of these places. So it was a golden opportunity. When I was in Australia, I couldn't dance there. They didn't have the whole club circuit set up for that, but they had me sign autographs in some of the bookstores and such. And it just so happened I was in the first couple months of pregnancy with my second child. So our first son went with us, my husband went with us, and they've got a babysitter for us down there. Just so happened I had my birthday down there. And they threw a huge party for me in Australia at this sheep barn. It was amazing. There was like over 300 people there. They had a band. They had this huge cake. It was so sweet of them. And my husband, he was flirting with all of the other girls and dancing with them. And I was like, oh my gosh, here I am pregnant with your second child, and this is what you're doing on my birthday. So that was just a straw on the camel's back. But it wasn't long after that I got divorced. But it was a wonderful time. And in New Zealand, the people were the nicest I've ever met. Anywhere around the world. I mean, even some of the Midwestern nice people, and as nice as the people in Canada were, the people in Australia were even nicer. We went to this place to have lunch, and I wanted to do some souvenir shopping, So I asked our waitress where the closest tourist trap was so that I could buy some stuff for, Christmas gifts and birthday gifts for my relatives back home and such. And she said, oh, honey, I'm on my break. I'll take you there. And I thought, why don't you just point me in the direction you've been working? You shouldn't take your break having to escort me all around. No, she walked me like 15 minutes to the shopping place where everything was. I thought that was just above and beyond. I mean, a waitress, she's been on her feet, and now she's going to go walk me around town. That was amazing. But I had a wonderful time on the road. I couldn't have had a greater experience, a more wonderful chance to see the country. I mean, I saw places like Ravenna, Nebraska, where they have the biggest train turning station. They turn the trains around, and New York City, San Francisco, Montreal. We were up in Montreal multiple times where everybody's speaking French, and Vancouver, Tucson, all over Michigan multiple times, Saginaw, Huron, Grand Rapids, everywhere, Utah even, so it was pretty amazing, wonderful experience, and I'm very glad I did it. We all have regrets about certain things in life that didn't turn out the way we planned or something like that. But I have to tell you, one of the best experiences I ever had was dancing on the road all over the world and getting to see everything, getting to see our planet, and to show that to my children. I couldn't have done that if I hadn't have made those movies. So, and I learned a lot, not just in traveling, but in making movies. I learned how to make movies, how to edit, how to light a set, how to write a script, so it was a marvelous experience. It really was.